Hello and welcome to Lamplighter. Today is April 23. Today we continue in our daily Bible reading from the Psalms that give us a glimpse into the depths of the heart of David, a man who is often considered a man after God's heart. We've been looking at a series of Psalms entitled Psalms of the Troubled Soul, and we've been noticing all along the way how easy it is for us even today to relate to some of these sentiments that David is expressing, because all of us as human beings have times in our lives where our world seems troubled, where it sometimes seems that everything is going against us. And even as we struggle and as we hurt, there are very few people who really understand. We see from David how important it is during these times especially to stay tuned in with God and to keep our focus on the God who created us, who loves us, and who wants to save us. David gives us a great example of how to stay focused even through these times of despair. Today we begin with Psalm 70, and this psalm is entitled Urgency of the Need for God's Deliverance. This is yet another one of those psalms where David is being pursued by his enemies, and whether the threat is real or not, it is very intense as far as he is concerned. And he needs God's help, and he's begging in this psalm for God to act immediately. Can you relate to that? Of course, there are times when we are in such despair, we're not only asking for God's help and for God's deliverance, but we're begging him to act immediately. That's what David is doing here. He's begging for God to feel the same kind of urgency to meet his needs as David is feeling the need for God's urgency. He says in this psalm, "May all who seek you rejoice and be glad in you. May those who love your salvation always say, 'Let God be exalted.'" So even when feeling threatened, even when feeling pursued by those who may be conspiring against us, David says, keep focusing on God. Let God's salvation fill your soul. That's what's happening with him. He says, may those who love your salvation always say, "Let God be exalted." These are great words of advice. We can honestly say that when we're feeling beaten down by life, our motto should be, no matter what happens, no matter what the outcome of this difficult situation will be, I'm praying that God will be exalted. Paul often says in the New Testament, he prays that God will be exalted in him, whether by life or by death. And that's a prayer that every Christian should share. We move on to Psalm 71. This one is entitled Prayer for God's Presence, Even in Old Age. And there are several things here that I want to highlight for us to pay careful attention to in Psalm 71. I'm going to be reading some excerpts from this psalm, and it's located on page 509 if you want to follow along. He says, "For you have been my hope, O sovereign Lord, my confidence since my youth. From birth I have relied on you. You brought me forth from my mother's womb. I will ever praise you." A little bit further down, he says, "But as for me, I will always have hope. I will praise you more and more. My mouth will tell of your righteousness, of your salvation all day long, though I know not its measure. I will come and proclaim your mighty acts, O sovereign Lord. I will proclaim your righteousness, yours alone. Since my youth, O God, you have taught me, and to this day I declare your marvelous deeds. Even when I am old and gray, do not forsake me, O God, till I declare your power to the next generation, your might to all who are to come." David says, all my life I've known God. All my life I've wanted to bask in his goodness and his graciousness, his mercy and his glory. David says, I want to tell others about what God is doing in my life, not only what he's done in the past, but what he continues to do. And he says, since I've known about God all my life, I want to tell others so that they can know him all of their lives as well. He says that even when I'm old and gray, he says, please, God, don't take my life away from me until I have the opportunity to proclaim your story. I wonder how many of us can share that same sentiment. I've known God for so many years and he's blessed me so richly. I can't wait to tell other people about what he has done and what he is doing in my life. And I don't want my life to stop until I can tell more people and make sure the next generation has a story worth telling. It's a great sentiment. We move on to Psalm 77, the comfort of knowing God's record of deliverance. Here, David is reflecting on the stories he has been taught all of his life while knowing God. He's been told the stories of how God has always blessed his people. He's been told the stories of how God delivered his people from Egyptian bondage so many years ago, how God brought them across the Red Sea on dry ground, how God defeated every obstacle along the way. And as David remembers what God has done, he's counting on God to continue to deliver his people. He's continuing more specifically to count on God to deliver him. Maybe this history lesson is a good one for us as well. Let's remember everything that God has done in our own lives, but even historically, and see that God is always faithful and will always deliver, and we find hope and comfort in knowing that God. Psalm 83 is a prayer for punishment of oppressing nations. In this psalm, he says, cover their faces with shame so that men will seek your name, O Lord. Basically, it's the same song again about defeating those who are in error. Don't let them get away with it. Don't let them gloat over their enemies. Let them be punished for their acts of oppression. And then we come to Psalm 86. This one is such a powerful psalm, I want to reread it with you in its entirety. Psalm 86 is one that just has so much meaning and so much power for even our lives today, so much relevance to where we are in our lives. It's a great, great prayer. David says, hear, O Lord, and answer me, for I am poor and needy. Guard my life, for I'm devoted to you. You are my God. Save your servant who trusts in you. Have mercy on me, O Lord, for I call to you all day long. Bring joy to your servant, for to you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. You are forgiving and good, O Lord, abounding in love with all who call to you. Hear my prayer, O Lord. Listen to my cry for mercy. In the day of my trouble, I will call to you, for you will answer me. Among the gods, there is none like you, O Lord. No deeds can compare with yours. All the nations you have made will come and worship before you, O Lord. They will bring glory to your name, for you are great and do marvelous deeds. You alone are God. Teach me your ways, O Lord, and I will walk in your truth. Give me an undivided heart, that I may fear your name. I will praise you, O Lord my God, with all my heart. I will glorify your name forever, for great is your love toward me. You have delivered me from the depths of the grave. The arrogant are attacking me, O God. A band of ruthless men seeks my life, men without regard for you. But you, O Lord, are a compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness. Turn to me and have mercy on me. Grant your strength to your servant and save the son of your maidservant. Give me a sign of your goodness, that my enemies may see it and be put to shame. For you, O Lord, have helped me and comforted me. Is that not a marvelous prayer? Does it not show us the heart of a man who's after God's heart? I want a heart like that, don't you? Isn't it great to be a lamplighter? His word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. I hope you have a blessed day.